everything on social media was like, oh my God, Katie, you're doing so well, it's happening. And that was the darkest point in my life.
Burnout, it's so real.
You wake up feeling exhausted, even though you might have had 8-9 hours sleep.
The school system is broken. If I feel low, I go to school. If I am in pain, I go to school.
Breathe in, breathe out.
I feel like breathwork is very feminine.
You know, when we're young, when we're sort of 12, 13, 14, starting periods, take the pill.
I've got 12 boys standing up here next to me. Why haven't one of you ladies in the crowd stood up?
Come on, girls.
I wish there was a woman that came into my school and said, if you want that pay rise, you ask for it.
80% of autoimmune diagnoses across the NHS will be women.
Whoa, what is breathwork?
Okay, so
welcome back, ladies, to another episode of The Money Honey, the show that brings together and celebrates the women in property, finance, and construction. I wanted to create this safe space, this safe community where all different talents can shine, all the different voices can be heard, and all the beautiful faces that I see in the industry can be seen. So you're with me today, your host, Rosalia Lazzara, and I'm a proud host of the Money Honey podcast, which has been running now for about 16 to 18 months. And I'm just super delighted to have actually interviewed over 100 women, to have showcased so many different stories, from burnout to menopause to building a career, to being on the board, to combating, diversity and inclusion, and even having a career break perhaps for that family that you want to start. So there's been so many topics on this show that we have addressed, and if there's a topic missing that you think that we need to be talking about, please make it known to me. Let me know, reach out and let me know anything that you want to hear about, or maybe you would like to be a speaker. You're like, actually, Ros, you haven't touched on this topic and I think it's really important and I'd like to be the face of that. So absolutely welcome you and your message. As long as it's kind and supportive and helpful, then we welcome any message here. So on the show today, please do make sure that you tune in right up until the very end, because I know this is going to be yes, we're going to get to know about the speaker, but of course we always like to bring value and insights and actionable top tips. And I know every single person, regardless of whatever background, of whatever industry they're in, they are going to want to be soaking this episode up. I know it. I'm going to be doing it for myself. I really have been wanting to speak to this person for such a long time. So let me just tell you what it is. So please do remember to subscribe. We want to keep growing this channel. Before I dive in, we want to keep growing it because it's a free community. It's a free podcast. And we're doing this so that we can spread the word. Like, that's the positive pollination. So the only way that we can spread it is by subscribing, liking, and sharing. So please do that, because even if you're not a guest on the show, you matter in the positive pollination action. Like, the positive pollination action could be you come and speak on the show because you want to spread your word, but the other way is just that sheer act of sharing or liking actually helps this be seen. So that's a massive impact that you have as part of our community. Even if I don't know you or don't see you, that is a massive influence that you have in our community. So thank you. So the topic we were going to tackle today is the topic of burnout and completely reshuffling your entire life, because perhaps you've not read the signals that your body's been throwing at you, and then the signals get bigger and bigger and louder and uglier until you have no more way of ignoring it. And hopefully you've not been in the situation where it becomes too late to ignore it, but at that point we usually kind of like, when it's ugly enough and scary enough, we're kind of like, whoa, I think I need to do something here. So I come at this, it's interesting because I've just recorded an episode with another guest talking about my hustle culture and how I love working and I love, on the go. So I'm very keen to see how my yin and yang can be balanced today. I've been reaching out to this person who has given me her precious wisdom and time, in a very unplanned, unexpected, but really gracious way. So I can't wait to introduce you to, without further ado, to the wonderful Katy Lehman. Hi there, Katy. How are you? Hi. I am super excited to just listen to your voice today and absorb your goodness. Like, I just can't wait to hear with like what you've got to bring for me today and everyone listening in, because burnout is so real. It's so real. And before we dive in, why don't you just give us a little intro? I wanted to leave it to you to tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, absolutely honoured to be here. And yeah, it was amazing to meet you on here finally. I know we've spoken briefly. But yeah, my name's Katy Lehman. I was in the property and mortgage industry for over 22 years. And over a long period of unintegrated experiences, I reached burnout finally. It was really sort of starting to ramp up in 2020. But yeah, 2021 at the start of that was the eye of the storm, you know. And I was grateful enough to find a modality that really genuinely helped save my life. It allowed me to take a different path than mainstream, because over the years, yeah, that path hadn't sort of aligned for me, hadn't worked for me, hadn't certainly worked for other friends and family members. And I'm so grateful. And it became a movement of me being able to bring everything in my life. And even when I reflect back on all of this time, this was the opportunity, and this is sort of like the pivotal moment, like you said, when things get too loud and it gets really ugly. Those are the opportunities, and that's the place where you either grow or, you know, potentially the other side of it is that you fall. And for me, it saved my life. And yeah, I feel like there's so much to be said for it. But it's something that I'm just so passionate about. And without me really knowing, the more I studied breathwork, which we're going to go into, I'm sure, the more I studied it, the more I embodied it. The way I work is I have to learn everything and really go in a deep dive to understand the why. And yeah, it's really led me from learning it for myself into a side passion project alongside my business to then being, okay, this is actually something that I have to bring, because I was still not working in alignment. So yeah, I took the plunge last year and I actually sold my mortgage business, which was everything I ever wanted, everything that I was working towards, my, you know, sort of my whole working career. And yeah, here I am sort of 12 months in, with my sort of business, you know, being sold, and really sort of stepping into this full time. And I'm just here for the ride.
Wow. So how long had you been running your mortgage business for?
It was 5 years old when I
Wow.
sold
So
it.
you as a mortgage and protection advisor, you ran your business for 5 years. You built it to a level of selling it on.
Yeah, so I was actually in 50-50 with somebody, my old business partner, and he bought me out, basically. He's taken over the business. But yeah, at the height of when everything was absolutely flying for us, we were opening an office, you know, everything on social media was like, oh my God, Katy, you're doing so well, it's happening. And that was the darkest point of my life. And, you know, on social media, it was far from it. And, you know, there's also, that's even something to get used to sort of navigating, because there's that, oh, really? You know, does that mean you're a fake or a phony? And it's not, it's a survival mechanism. And it was a good one.
So why did people think you were flying, but you weren't? I don't want to go into anything too private, but what does it actually look like? What's the context? Why? How do you know you were burning out? What were you burning out about? What were you going through?
Yeah. Unmanaged stress and a past history of 2016 of complex PTSD, which was then undiagnosed. So there was an incredible amount of stress on, again, with the property industry at that time. You know, after lockdown, the property market went boom, which again was great for the mortgage industry in a way. But there's a lot of, we weren't able to scale sort of organically in that. And I wasn't able to live consciously in alignment. I was very much around, I wasn't able to be responsive in my business. I was being reactive. So I had no sort of ability to sort of manage myself, manage my own sort of well-being, my own family, my own friends. Everything was just work related. And I was stuck at the laptop till 2:00 most mornings because that's what you do, right? And then it caught up with me.
And what does it look like when it catches up with you? What can people see? How do we know it's caught up with us? What happens?
Sleep is pretty much non-existent, or if it isn't non-existent, it's very disruptive. You wake up feeling exhausted, even though you might have had 8-9 hours sleep. The big one for me was, I remember getting out of bed every morning. I don't know whether you've ever had a dream where you're in a dream and you feel like you're running through the mud. And it literally felt like I had to physically drag myself out of bed. And my business, a lot of things that were happening in my business, I couldn't enjoy it. I couldn't appreciate it. I was numb to it, and nothing was ever good enough because the way it felt, because the way I was feeling, I couldn't process it. Health-wise, as a woman, period stopped. So at sort of 33, I was told that I was entering menopause, which I wasn't. I was severely sort of dehydrated from all the stress. Minerally, I was deficient. I was very reactive, very emotional, very numb. And I wasn't feeling overly creative. And I was very self-critical, amongst, other things, health-wise as well. But in a nutshell, and it was the whole, because I had no awareness of it and I didn't know how to deal with it. And also because on the outside, I should be okay, right? I should be. You've got everything you ever wanted. You've got a daughter, you've got a husband, you've got a house, you've got a business, you've got this, you've got that. And I was literally, burning inside, basically.
Yeah. Gosh, I can imagine the amount of people maybe listening to this right now thinking, oh, that's what it is. Like, yeah, I just kept going because we learn to cope with it. And I think as women, we learn to cope with, oh, that's just a cold. Oh, that's just, yeah, of course. Like, if you think about it, we've been working through pain ever since the age of 14. Like when you get a period, you're like, okay, this is what it's going to be like for the rest of my life. If I feel low, I go to school. If I am in pain, I go to school. If I have pain, I have to still do my exam. I can't exactly be like, sorry, can all the females do their exams at this time of the day? Like you just have to, everyone is treated equally, which is why like this topic of equality is like, we're not going to be equal. I don't want, like, we're not equal. We've got feminine energy, we've got masculine energy, you've got masculine genitals, I've got female genitals. Like they work differently at different
100%.
times, right? And 100%. So I don't think there's going to be that equality. That it can't be, because my hormones are different to, like, when you look at like it under a microscope, they look like different hormones. They're not the same.
We're different. And we're very much taught, again, when we're young, when we're sort of 12, 13, 14, starting periods, take the pill. When you start your period, you take your pill. I've got a lot to say about that.
I didn't. No.
Yeah, and
I've never taken anything like that, just because I didn't know what. Again, we don't get educated on like, well, why should you? When should you?
Exactly.
Like, so some people have like severe headaches and really bad skin and stuff like that. I have no idea.
Yeah, I agree. We're not the same. So in a nutshell, the whole education system, we're not really taught how our bodies actually work. I always remember in biology, for example, it was the science lesson about the fisheye and the pig heart, not our nervous system, not how to listen to ourselves intuitively, how to build a healthy balance between our mind and our body, and understand what feels right, what feels safe, what feels authentic, what feels soul-led, what feels like a challenge, what's fear, what is anxiety, like all these things. We're not taught any of it. We're taught that everything in our society is external. So success, the car, the house, the holidays, the clothes, the this, the that. Actually, true success for me is inner peace, you know, because when you have inner peace, you're able to then operate from alignment. And when you operate from alignment, the byproduct of that is success anyway, because you attract what you are in your authentic self.
Yeah, I am so with this because I'm currently going through a whole campaign, because you've just brought up biology in school and things like that. I'm going through a whole like content series on TikTok, which is called "The School System is Broken: 100 Things I Wish I Would Have Learned in School." So every day I share one thing, and I go on my 5K walk. So I've only just started. I'm on like day 4 or 5, and I go on a 5K walk a day. And on that walk, I will share one thing that I wish I would have learned in school. And today's theme was, oh yeah, how to use LinkedIn, because you don't get taught, you know, how to use LinkedIn. But the day before, so yesterday was Matt, my husband, who did one about like, he doesn't know how to sell, like he never got taught, like it's not in his personality. And he was like, I wish I would have learned sales in school. And then the day before that was emotional intelligence. And how, yeah, like we're going through exams, we're going through puberty, we're going through bullying, we're going through making friends, losing friends, our body's changing, someone's got bigger boobs, I don't have the boobs, I've got a moustache and a unibrow, I don't know what to do with it. And you're going through like the biggest change in your body at that age, and we're not taught how to like regulate our emotions or how to understand what someone else might be going through, and empathy and compassion and stress. Like you're going through exams, like why didn't we get taught meditation? Like before we sat into an exam, there should be a universal meditation for the whole room. Now I went to a Catholic school, so I am actually blessed, pun intended, that with the prayer side of our school, that was actually what most state schools that haven't got a religion lack, because our prayer did bring us together, and our prayer did have that center point of like, in fact, my prayer at our school was like a made up prayer by our school. And it was all about like, you know, keep my actions conscientious, you know, speak with kindness and do as I said I was going to do. And I was like, wow, this prayer the other day, I remembered it. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best prayer. I was like, I am going to have to read, because you know when sometimes you remember something from your childhood and you like remember it like a nursery rhyme.
100%.
I said it again to my husband. He was like, that's actually a really sensible prayer that should be said at work.
I love that. Yeah, I love that, because again, you know, we're taught that success is that external validation. So like, you pass this test, no matter which way you do it, that means that that's okay. That's acceptance.
Yeah.
Not actually. Okay, this is actually really interesting, because I actually did some talks in a high school in my mortgage business. So, you know, telling them, you know, what a mortgage is and how to buy a house and money management and all these things, which again, they're not taught. And I'll never forget one of the high schools that we went into, there was a classroom of kids. One half were complete A-star students, the other half, a bit rowdy, but they had that business. Now I'd have employed like a few of them tomorrow, like that group. They were a bit lively, a bit cheeky, this, that, and the other. And I remember saying to him, I was like, why are they going to uni? Because the kids couldn't answer, oh, you know, we don't know where we want to go, but we know we should go. But the school were targeted not on the children's success rate. It was how many kids they can convert from sixth form to uni. And the teacher knew full well that actually those kids shouldn't really be going to uni, but they're going to be pushing them to go anyway. And I just thought, how on earth is that even a thing? How is that living in alignment? You know, I'm not judging the guy, because you know, he's trying to do what he can do, but I found it really profound. At the time, my daughter was like 2 or 3, and I was just like, how is that okay? That you're actively pushing a kid into disalignment, and he wouldn't necessarily have been taught the regulation tools and the confidence and the self-groundness to kind of go against the grain and ask why and push that. No, this is what feels good for me. This is what.
Well, no, because if you ask why and push back at school, you're naughty. Exactly. So you can't push back and ask. Like when I go into schools, and I do a lot of talks in schools about, well, mostly again, I filter in there like the property element, the money, the mortgages and stuff like that. I get asked about LinkedIn workshops now. I get asked about that business journey, like how did I go from like school to uni to then having a business. And I did a workshop once where I was like, right, okay, now it's time for volunteers. Can I please have some people that come up here and volunteered? It was like totally unrelated to what I'm about to say, but I was like, yeah, I just need some volunteers. I got my volunteers. I said I just needed 12. And I looked at the line and I said, and I looked at the audience and I said, right, I've got 12 boys standing up here next to me. Why haven't one of you ladies in the crowd stood up here next to me? And they were all like, I went, you're going to be faced with this in the office, in the real world. You're going to be, and the teacher was like, oh, like he literally was like, he was like, I was not expecting that, because he just thought I was going to just carry on with my volunteers. And I was like, I'm going to ask again. I'm going to ask everybody to sit down. And I said, don't you then blame the men for not involving you. I said, because these guys have taken up their space, but you haven't. No, I didn't say I want 12 boy volunteers. I just said I want 12 volunteers, and you didn't stand up for yourself.
So interesting.
Yeah. So even just that, I don't think teachers pick up. And look, I'm not here. All my whole family see. My brother, my sister-in-law are teachers, and they're very, I think they're very good teachers. But at the end of the day, I don't think they pick up on, those social cues or that social,
they're not taught to.
Yeah, they're not taught.
Unless it's in you, it's not in you, and that's.
Well, it's in their lesson plan. Their lesson plan doesn't say, oh, and by the way, if a girl doesn't stand up, tell her to. Like, it doesn't have that in there. So I was just kind of bringing my external personal experiences, which is why it's great to have like exposure with like the next generation. And that's, the whole purpose of why I go into schools, is that actually I wish there was a woman that came into my school and said, if you want that pay rise, you ask for it.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And again, it's an interesting one, because I actually did some work last year with some year 11 kids, and I did some breathwork sessions with them before their exams were starting, and it really broke my heart seeing a circle of sort of 12. Yeah, there was 12 girls, burnt out, numb, emotionless, disconnected, to then actually having some mindful time and actually creating some safety in and around sharing. It was almost like a women's circle, but like a small one for school. But then teaching them some techniques, allowing them to notice if they change their breathing pattern, how different they can feel. And it was incredible to watch. And honestly, I just burst into tears when I left, because I just thought, I wish I had that as well, that knowledge, that knowing, to be like, oh my God, I can literally change my reality and change what's happening in my body like that. I asked them all, what's anxiety? Oh, well, anxiety is, your chest is tight. I'm like, yeah, but what is it? It's not a thing. It's a response. It's your body responding. So if your body's responding to it, it's understanding and building that connection with that anxiety, and understanding it from a soul level, from like a trigger level, an emotional level, but then backing it up with the science and going, okay, this is what anxiety is. And they're like, oh, if that's all it is, and I can breathe like this to integrate it, not take it away, but to calm it down and regulate myself, you don't have to take anxiety pills or think that there's something wrong with you.
Oh my God, yeah, like basically just like depression pills and things. Look, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not gonna I'm not saying these things are not to be taken. So I've seen very, very close to home what real depression looks like, and a disability that that comes with that and stuff. Like, I've seen it in our family, and it's just not nice. Like, I get it, but again, this is something that in school we need to be aware of. Actually, what if someone else is depressed? Or can we sense that someone else has got an eating disorder? Can we sense if someone else has got a disability that actually makes them feel alienated? How can we make them feel more inclusive? All that kind of stuff. I don't think that is. But anyway, I also really want to ask. Sorry,
we're going on a tangent. No, we're both on like the school thing. I love it.
I know, but just explain breathwork and your work, like what, because like for you as a mortgage broker to talk to a mortgage so obviously the listeners are women in mortgages, women in finance, women in construction, women in property, women lawyers, women accountants. So I think we're all in quite high male orientated energy roles. I feel like if you were to draw an accountant, you would probably draw a man, or like, you know what I mean? Like if you said, what does a person in construction look like? You'd be like, yeah, builder, a man. That person. So we've got to acknowledge and embrace the fact that we do have this male energy in this industry. So considering that, I feel like breathwork is very feminine.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know. I feel like
that's your perception. That's correct. Do you know what I mean? That's yours. I love that.
My perception is that someone really in touch with their emotions and meditating and breathing is like a female energy aspect. I'm not saying it's a female thing. It's like a female energy thing that men can have too. So like, you know, my husband will cry at all the movies and I'm like, what are you crying about? You know, so he's got that female energy. He'll just be a soppy bear, you know, in front of a movie. So anyway, but you tell me, what is breath work?
Okay, so God, what is breath work? I mean, yeah, it's a big one. It's a big old question, but basically, breathwork is practicing certain breathwork techniques and certain ways of breathing that can either enhance your present moment. It can heal your nervous system. It can have lots of different health benefits. It can also help with trauma integration. It can help with performance in the gym and sports performance. The different prongs of what breathwork is it's so vast, it's so profound. I literally won't have time to go into it. But my experience with breathwork was I was numb and I was at a height of burnout, and I found a style of breathwork that really helped me sort of find my power again, but really clear some trauma that had happened. And trauma is a big buzzword at the minute. And I sort of lent into that side of it. But the more science I've learned, the deeper I've broadened my knowledge with it. It's, like I said, it's so multi-tiered. It's insane. But the ratio of my clients are probably 60-40, 60 being women, 40 being men. And when I've held men-only spaces in groups as well, sometimes they are actually, I found, more open, more sharing, because with women, 80% of all autoimmune diseases are felt by women. So 80% of autoimmune diagnoses across the NHS will be women.
Like what? Sorry, what kind of autoimmune?
Like lupus or fibromyalgia, you know, those types of autoimmune issues generally are going to be more experienced by women because we get better at suppression.
Wow.
We suppress a lot down. We're taught to please because we're the caregivers, right? So as you were saying before about the whole school system, you know, looking for others and caring for others, there's an element of that which is absolutely fundamental to community. However, it's striking that balance between pouring out and pouring in. And I was too out because I was seeking and needing sort of external validation because I was lost within myself over, you know, other needs that were unmet, you know, without going into too much detail over this podcast, which I'm always happy to. I'm very much an open book. But yeah, women can take sometimes, there's a big sort of wound within women. In our society, we're taught that, you know, boss babe, hustle culture, you know, we can have it all. I say I'm a sort of one of those victims of that mentality of we're supposed to do what men can do. We can do what men can do. I don't need a man. I want a man, which I still, you know, stand by. I still want my husband. But I was very much equal that culture. And it's ultimately a culture that was sold to us in the 1960s. When you look at the feminist movement and sort of, you know, funders behind it, there's an ulterior agenda there in the research that I've done without sort of going again too deep into things. But naturally, I just tend to research and I tend to look for places and look for the reasons why. I was also told in school, don't ask why, stop asking. So over time, I suppressed. My authentic self was too much for people. So I then became so much out of alignment that I was just completely lost and disconnected. So Breathwork allows you to help you with stress and anxiety, helps you with burnout, helps regulate your hormones, lower blood pressure, improve performance, all the different things. But also it helps you be present, stop worrying about the future, contemplating the past, living in guilt, living in shame or fear. And even in business, you might be flying at life. You don't need to be burnt out to practice breathwork. You could be smashing life. But is there a piece there that you're struggling to actually feel that something's enough? Or how can you come off that hamster wheel? You don't have to be in that lane. And we're not built as women and men, to be fair. We're not built to be on that 100-mile-an-hour cart for the dawn of time. Like, you know, even since lockdown, people don't have boundaries anymore. They'll get home and they'll put the kids to bed and they're on work, and they'll get up early and they'll go on work or social media and they're posting and then this. And that's great, right? And at some point we need to expel more energy than other days if we're, you know, pushing a certain agenda within the business or a new product or a service. But it's being able to consciously balance that output with filling you back up. Because if you don't, whether you're 25, 55, 65, 44 or 33 like I was, your body's going to burn out. And it's however old you are or however that catches you. And that's what I'm passionate about, is trying to educate, because I've had to recover, and it's harder to get back up the hill once you've come off it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's obviously better to prevent than to cure, right? So if for those people listening who want to explore breath work, you know, what's a really quick win or a simple way to, you know, without really diving into the books and the training, like how can we just use breath work today?
Mm-hmm. So you can be sat in the car. Let's say you are on hold at work and you're on hold to Nationwide or lender or, you know, whoever else, and you're sat there. And I would invite you to just simply think about breathing in very gently in through your nose, and imagine as in you're expanding your rib cage area, right? So you're not breathing up into your chest and your shoulders. You're actually breathing down into your rib cage and looking to maybe kind of like expand your body out. Just mindfully breathe in and breathe out. No one knows what you're doing. Okay, you could do it at your desk, in the car, before bed, making tea. You can do it at the gym. You can do it wherever. Even being able to stop in that moment and simply breathing in and then out and making that exhale slightly longer is going to help calm things down, whether or not, you're in a stressful situation.
Okay, so I do that like the power of 4, like breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, or breathe in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. You know, like I've done like different ones. Now, is breath work like, if I liken it to the analogy of alcohol and say, or cigarettes, it's like smoke nothing all week, but smoke them all on Saturday. I don't think not smoking during the week will balance out just smoking on a Saturday, right? Mm-hmm. So when I'm breathing and I'm there like, you know, in my Hakuna Matata state, I'm like, yeah, but am I really doing any good to my body if I'm only going to go back and go full on out all day, and I'm going to be all out in like, you know, MIPIM all week, and then I'm like, yeah, breathe, okay, fine, breath, done. You know, is that really going to balance out if I'm not really like that all the time? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it good enough to just breathe like for a few minutes, and then will that help my nervous system?
Absolutely. So we're taught, the profound thing about breath work is it is actually at the start that simple, right? Because being able to not focus on the future, focus on something external and just be with yourself. We have three nervous systems, but your main one is, the main ones are your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system, right? So your sympathetic nervous system is the one where it's going to get stuff done. You know, your masculine energy, let's say. So, you know, you've got goals, you've got this list to do today. I'm getting it done. I'm going to do the gym. I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to do. Okay. I'm going to set my goals and I'm going to smash life. Right. Great. Or that's also your sympathetic nervous system is also, if you're going to come under attack, then it's going to give you the adrenaline, it's going to give you the cortisol rush that you need to be on high alert. You know, our ancestors would be fighting bears with their sympathetic nervous system, you know, on high alert all the time. That's where people become hypervigilant. But if you get locked in that state and you don't come out of that state, right, you then run the risk of being burnt out or hypervigilant, where you're spiky, where you're quite, I call it spiky, but, you know, you're quite defensive, you're quite reactive. People can't really say anything to you. You can't take on any more because you're so stimulated and, you know, there's a lot going on. Whereas if you're able to allow your nervous system to be felt safe enough to just come out of that lane and just go into a different lane, which is your parasympathetic nervous system, where it's a lot calmer. It's your rest and digest. It's actually going to allow you to digest your food better. Because if you're eating your lunch, for example, at your desk, eating your lunch, your mouth isn't creating the saliva that it needs to send the signals to your stomach to break down your food properly. So actually, there's huge studies to actually confirm and prove that if you're eating under a stress state, you're not going to absorb all the nutrients that it needs, and you're actually going to potentially have a not improved metabolism. So you could eat the most organic food, take all the supplements, be doing all the things, but if your body's stressed underneath, you could look the picture of health on the outside, but inside, if that motor is getting tired over time and starting to get rusty in places, you're not oiling it up and keeping it nurtured, it's not going to absorb anything. You might as well eat McDonald's every day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love. Well, I'm happy to hear that. You know, my 10 minutes of meditation in the morning is doing me some good, and you know,
100%.
my walks, and you know, when you need that moment in the car, you're like, you know, like, yeah, got it. I
Yeah.
love this. So, I think there's too much to unpack here, that really, because I think you have to get into a point where it has to become personalized, right? Where you personalize plans. So how do you work with people? What is exactly your support system here?
Mm-hmm. So I've been working with quite a few well-known clients within the mortgage industry over the last sort of 12 months, which is, again, great because I can relate to this audience more so than anything else, right? And I offer groups, I offer events and retreats and things. I do that, so, you know, for more of an open theme, where if you resonate with it, you're going to book onto it. Whereas my one-to-one coaching is very much attuned to the person. So again, wherever you're at, you don't need to be burnt out. You might have already been burnt out, or you might be burnt out without you even knowing about it, or you're just genuinely curious. There's something about it that goes, I want to learn more about that. So I meet you wherever you're at. And this is what's niche about what I do, is because there isn't a blueprint of week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5 looks like this, because that's just putting people in the same boxes that school's in, right? How can I give my clients the best service if it's not tailored to them? So yeah, it's very much dependent on wherever the individual's at. And there's a lot of sort of first half of sessions are generally sort of talking, where it seems quite basic, but we're talking and intuitive questions are asked. And I'm very intuitive the way I operate as well. And then it's a mix of then practicing certain breathwork techniques, and there'd be almost like a prescription for whatever it needs to be met for that person to help them grow based on whatever their goals are. So it might be less stressed, or it's to gain clarity within their business, or to get the confidence to work towards a promotion, or, you know, scale the business in any way. So yeah, each week there's a like a revised prescription basically, and we're working towards a goal. And then my workplace stuff is very much around, okay, what's the issue with the workplace? Or is there sort of dysfunction within there? Is the relationship sort of breaking down? Again, a lot of women at the top, if there's an unintegrated, or there's a maybe unhealthy feminine movement going on where there's power battles and things, you know, it's education around, okay, how can we soften in order for you to rise? How can they regulate themselves, men and women, to allow them to ultimately live in alignment and do whatever it is that they need to do? But even within that, you know, clients' protection sales go up, because the more present you can be with a client by having your own nervous system regulated, you're going to achieve greater results, because you can hear things and catch things more by being present.
Yes, I love what this is a big overlooked point that I could continue talking for another hour with regards to mortgage advisors trying to sell protection, but actually in the conversation they were involved in mortgage. How can I get you on the property? And then they're like, would you like some protection? No. Oh, okay, then no worries, I'll check in with you in 6 months. And actually there's a really big, massive take up on, like, at least last year I saw it, how every firm from large to small were looking at, we don't do enough protection. And I hear it day in, day out. We're not doing enough protection. We're not serving our customers. We're not doing right by them. We're leaving them unprotected. And it's because they just weren't in tune into that conversation, or they were in tune with their own feelings against, like, oh, but it's just going to be difficult. And then I'm not going to, and actually you're holding that value back from your client. You're actually not giving them the safety and support that they actually need, which is not fair. So I love this. So, okay, we have, again, I always do this. I'm like, the time just flies. So unfortunately, I'm going to, because people listen to this on their commute and they're, in between like their lunch breaks. So I want to make them and honor the time that people dedicate to this, because I don't want to, go over time. So how do we
boundaries? It's a good thing.
Yeah, healthy boundaries. I've been getting that a lot lately, in terms of like, I didn't realize I was good at it until someone said, they're like, you really do know your boundaries. I was like, oh, yes. I mean, I guess that is something I've had to practice. It certainly does not come easy, but yeah, I want to respect other people's boundaries as well and your time. So tell us, if we want to soak up more and binge watch or listen to more of what you have to say, what is the best channel for you? Like, where are you most active? Where do you share your wisdom and knowledge?
Yeah. So I would probably say at the moment, Instagram, I would probably say, although I am actively coming back to LinkedIn, but just because since the mortgage business, I sold it last year, I've been very much behind the scenes, like really fine tuning what I do and, working with my clients on a one-to-one basis, pausing my groups whilst I sort of deepen my own education, my own integration of sort of life and this next chapter. So I'm really in a rebirthing process at the moment. So yeah, balance, not burnout is my approach, which is, again, like I said, tailored to the individual or the business. But I meet you and your team wherever you're at in order for you to thrive. So yeah, watch this space. More is being shared.
Yes,
that's for sure.
Amazing. I can't wait for it. I'm very, very excited to see that. Thank you once again for being just your true self and for giving up your time and your wisdom and your energy. We really, really appreciate it, and we want to respect you for that. So thank you for being a money honey. And to everybody else who has, pleasure. And to everybody else who has stayed with us on this episode, thank you for sticking with us. There will be more exciting episodes coming soon. Make sure you catch up with previous episodes. We've just had also an episode on, like female energy and like the soft girl era, as it's called. Well, I didn't know about that until I interviewed these people. Yeah, I didn't know about the soft girl era, but I didn't label it. I was just like, I think I practice a lot of elements of it, but I'm learning every day, and it's thanks to the Money Honeys, it's thanks to my clients, it's my team. So this is why we've created this community. So please do help us keep it alive by, like I said, subscribing and coming back week on week. We release an episode every single week on a Friday, just to give you that extra little buzz at the end of the week. So thank you for being here, and thank you, Katie, for being with me here today.
Thank you.